Hello and welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Gordon Denlinger of the 99th District in Lancaster County. My guest on today's program is my colleague, Representative Mindy Fee, who represents the 37th District in Lancaster County. Today you'll get to know her as we discuss her background and legislative goals, in addition to some issues that are currently brewing in Harrisburg. Representative Fee, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, you've been on an amazing journey through a campaign, and here you are in Harrisburg.
I have, and it's been a very exciting last year.
Very good. I'm sure it has, and things that you'll remember the rest of your life, no doubt. Yeah. As you look back on the legislative process, what's one thing that kind of stands out in your mind as you were engaging with the public?
You know, it's actually my favorite part. The whole time I campaigned, I got to talk to people one-on-one. I did lots of phone calls, and now I'm out at many different events and hearing what's near and dear to their heart. You know, I always tell people I have an open door policy. I'm there, I represent 60-some thousand people, and that's the way my vote is. And I won't know how to vote unless I hear from them. So I'm fortunate enough. My day's very full, and I have a lot of appointments set for people to come in and chat.
Very good. That connection is so very, very important. I'd like to go back, if we can, a little bit of biographical background. If you could share with us where you grew up, where you went to school, and sort of the earlier years.
Sure. I grew up in Mannheim, and I went to high school in Mannheim Central.
So you're a local Lancastrian.
I'm a local girl. For 47 years, I've been in the area. I went to college at Millersville, and I graduated with a degree in economics.
Okay.
Then when my husband and I got married, we settled back in Mannheim. It was important to me to come back to the area, and I raised my 3 children here. So, you know, I work here, I raise my children here, and Lancaster County's near and dear to me.
Wonderful. And I know your husband had some prior connection to the State House through his family. Can you share that with us?
He did. His father was a legislator years ago. And my husband worked down at Department of Treasury and Economic Development. That's how I actually met him 20 plus years ago. Mm-hmm. He loved our area, and he loved Mannheim. He actually ran for mayor, and then he was our sitting district magistrate when I lost him about a year and a half ago.
And I remember that tragedy, and we loved your husband so much, and certainly that memory is really, really there.
It is. You know, I said I had a perfect role model in how to be a public servant. Mm-hmm. He did it, and he loved it, and it's kind of how I came to be with the job, because I worked out in the private sector, but after I lost him, a lot of people asked me to step up and serve, and I'm happy to follow in his footsteps.
So you took a difficult situation and said, I'm going to build on that and serve the public.
I did. I think it's important to continue on, and I'm honored to be able to do it.
Wonderful. Very good. Growing up in the Mannheim area, so the connections there to the values of that community, I'm sure are strong. Could you share with us what things you lifted from the community in those growing up years? Absolutely.
You know, I said, I've always been with the premise that government needs to be smaller. And I think years ago it could be smaller because we relied on our families, we relied on our neighbors, we relied on our churches, and somehow that sense of community has lost its way. And I'm a firm believer we need to go back to that. And you know, we had a tragedy, not a tragedy, but we had flooding in Mannheim about a year and a half ago.
Yes.
And our whole neighborhood all got flooded. Mm-hmm. You know, I had 1.5 feet in my basement. I had neighbors who had 5 feet in their basements. But you know, what I saw is us come together. We would go from house to house. You know, we had old retired ladies who lived alone. We had young families. And everybody just pitched in, and we helped each other, and that's what's important in this world.
It seems in tragedy sometimes we see the very best of people.
Absolutely.
They really come forward, and in our communities, yours and mine, we see that in big ways, particularly in hardship. So,
yep, absolutely.
Good. So now here you are in the House, and a few months into the job. What's been the biggest surprise for you since you came to Harrisburg?
You know, I say this often. I guess I found with all the legislature how diverse it is, first of all. There's a lot of women, there's a lot of young people, there's a lot of older gentlemen and ladies, but you know, they're hardworking people who want to do the best for their own communities. They want to do the right thing, just like we in Lancaster do. But Pennsylvania is a very diverse state, I'm finding.
5 states in one, they say.
Yeah,
Right.
it really is. And you know, what's important to us in Lancaster County isn't always the most important to people in other areas. And that's a real challenge. So I think that was probably my biggest surprise.
I think occasionally I get amazed at, you know, we wear labels, Republican, Democrat, and, you know, we want to fix an assumption that every Republican, they all think the same, every Democrat, they all think the same, and that is not true. A lot of
No.
it's regional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, we see that. I know you've experienced that as well. Since coming in, as far as relationship building, have you found that to be fairly an open door with a lot of representatives?
First, let me say thank you to you and to all the other members in the Lancaster delegation. You want to talk about embracing. With 3 new members, we have Representative Greiner and Representative Menzer who came in with me. And you've just embraced us, which is wonderful, because there is a big learning curve down here. I mean, I say you have to be knowledgeable on everything. And you know, as you know, I sit beside you in caucus, and I'm often asking you things. I sit beside Representative Hickernell on the House floor. So the Lancaster delegation has been incredible to me. But it goes beyond that. Yeah, I was going to say it goes beyond that. I have those in leadership are just, you know, I feel like I could walk into Representative Turzai's office and say, excuse me, do you have a moment? And he would absolutely take a moment. And that's across the board. There's some women who, the Women Caucus gets together, and they've been a great resource. So yeah, it's been wonderful.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I experience a lot of the same here, and you know, sometimes I think the public takes sort of a dim view maybe of government, Harrisburg, Washington, what have you. There are a lot of dedicated people, and there are a lot of there is a spirit of goodwill that happens
absolutely.
in the House, and I think when we walk off the floor, to the extent that we can, we leave some of the rancor behind, you know, the debates that we have, and I think some of the better things that happen are just caring about individuals as people, and that happens a lot.
You do. You find common ground, and you sometimes you agree to disagree, but you find common ground. Has it changed since you first came in to today? Do you think?
I think it's, you know, it's a little different in ways. It depends on how bruising the battles have been, you know, and we do, you know, as Lancaster Countyans, so we're fairly conservative in tone, and so that comes up against some of the views of others in other parts of the state particularly. But still, in all, beneath it all, there is that spirit of friendliness and camaraderie that exists, and so I think it's better than maybe the public perceives at points. So I'm glad your experience has been positive.
Absolutely,
that way as
absolutely.
Well. Now you've been here and been placed on certain committees. Could you tell us which ones you have and what they're about?
Certainly, I'm thrilled with my committees. You know, being a freshman, they always say, you know, ask for your top 3 and we'll see where you land. But I serve with you on the Ag Committee, and of course, that's one that's near and dear to our heart.
Very important to our area.
Absolutely. And, you know, Pennsylvania is the leading ag producer, and Lancaster County leads that way. So with you and with Representative Hickernell and myself, I said, I'm not sure there's any committees that have 3 people from the same county in it. So I think it's wonderful to have 3 voices there. I'm actually put forth my first resolution. Chairman Marr came to me, and I'm so grateful for his knowledge.
Chairman Marr of Ag Committee,
Of Ag Committee, right. Yes. Sorry about that. And it's the May is National Egg Month. So I get to put through the resolution to make that National Pennsylvania Egg Month. And, you know, we're the 3rd largest producer of eggs in the nation, and it brings over $400 million to our economy.
Critical to our economy.
It is, absolutely. So I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yes, and then I know you've had some other items, and I should digress here to say, is it education? Are you also on, or what other committees?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on local government.
Local government, okay.
My predecessor was the chairman, Representative Creighton, of local government, so I thought that was important to hop back on. And I work closely. I have 7 townships and 3 boroughs in the district, and I've been out meeting and trying to find out everything that's, you know, top priorities for them, so we can look at policies to help things move along. And I'm on Game and Fish and Human Services.
And Human Services,
Sorry
there we
about
go.
that.
There's a lot flying around, I know.
There is.
Yeah, okay. So you're, wow, seeing a lot of diversity of issues on those 4 committees as you're working with them, I'm sure.
Sure. I mean, human services, that was one of my platforms I ran on, Department of Public Welfare. You know, I come from the business sector, and I have a tendency to look at policy through that lens. I understand tight margins, I understand long hours, and I look to see where the money's going. And you know, 39% of our budget goes to DPW, the welfare department. So I'm a believer that we should get money to those who need. You know, it's a safety net. It's set up for people who need, and the best thing we can do is make people self-reliant.
Well, when we see folks who abuse the system, the people that are really cheating beyond the taxpayer, of course, is those who do have the legitimate need, because then there's less resource available for those folks. So, so that's great. So from your private sector background, you've targeted it in on that as well. Game and fisheries, how has that been working with that community?
That's exciting too. You know, I grew up with a father and brothers that would hunt all the time. And it's important. I love to fish myself, and you know, we have abundant resources of activities for us in Pennsylvania, and we need to make sure that we pass policies that that will continue. I mean, we have a lot of sportsmen in our district, as you do.
We do, absolutely. The north and eastern end of the county, huge sportsmen's population. I would totally concur with that. Very good. Well, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back and chat a little bit more about the current priorities that are in the House. Let's take a short break. Legislative report will return in just a moment.
Did you know that Violet Oakley was the first female artist to receive a large commission for artwork done in a United States Capitol building? In 1902, Joseph Houston, designer and architect for the 3rd Harrisburg Capitol building, commissioned Violet Oakley to paint murals for the governor's reception room. He believed that Oakley's contribution would add interest to the building and act as an encouragement of women of the state. Prior to beginning her work for the Capitol, Oakley set out to England to conduct research for her murals. Upon return, she decided to center her artwork on William Penn and the founding of Pennsylvania. Oakley made sure that Penn's ideals of justice and peace could be seen throughout her work. In 1906, she completed 13 murals titled The Founding of the State of Liberty Spiritual, and was placed in sequential order around the governor's reception room. These murals were some of the first to be installed in the Capitol. When Edwin Austin Abbey, another artist for the Capitol, died in 1911, Oakley was offered another opportunity to create murals for the unfinished Senate and Supreme Court chambers. Her work on the Senate murals, including International Understanding, was completed by 1919. Oakley then completed the Supreme Court murals, including the Divine Law, by 1927. Oakley is said to be the principal artist for the Capitol, with a total of 43 murals on display. She remains one of the greatest muralists in the United States. Now you know.
Welcome back to the program. I'm State Representative Gordon Denlinger, and joining me today is Representative Mindy Fee. Mindy, thanks for joining again today.
Absolutely.
And as we were ending the first segment, you were sharing a little bit about your running on the Human Services platform and the desire to make sure that those truly in need receive support, but we root out some of that fraud, waste, and abuse that's sometimes in the system. I'd like to bring up a current piece of legislation that I know you've been very connected to, and that's Representative Grove's bill to go after unemployment compensation payments to prisoners. And I'm wondering if you can share with us a little bit about that piece of legislation. I think it's 403, House Bill 403
Absolutely,
is
it's
the
House
number.
Bill 403, and we passed it out of the House last week. And he increases penalties. One of the problems we have, not so much in state prisons, but in county prisons. As a matter of fact, they've been working on it for the past year and a half, and in this January alone, they found $6 million being collected that should not have been collected, right, through the county prisons. Because what happens is inmates go in and they apply for unemployment. Well, you can't apply for unemployment unless you are able to go out and find work. And of course, when you're incarcerated, that can't happen. So Representative Grove's bill has now increased the penalties if you are found applying for benefits that you're not entitled to. And one of his things is when you are, or if you are eligible down the road to apply for benefits, they take it away from you for up to an extra 52 weeks now. So I think it's a great piece of legislation that passes.
Okay, so it's a kind of a stick mentality. If they get out of prison, they become unemployed. They're already in a penalty status. So it's a disincentive to draw down these dollars. Well, that's impressive. So you're tackling that to try to get on top of that situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we need to get the help to those who are eligible for the help.
Absolutely right, yes. One of the big things that's come through the House here in recent weeks, of course, is the liquor privatization effort. And you and I hail from a fairly conservative area of the state, should we say.
We sure do.
Just wondering, you know, sort of your take on that whole effort. Obviously, there's probably been a 25-year direction by some in the conservative camp to get the government out of the business. And yet in Lancaster County, we take sort of a guarded or limited approach to some of this. Can you share with us your thoughts on all that?
I can. Actually, you know, no matter what side of the debate you were on with that, the fact that the House came together and passed that bill, I thought was thrilling. I mean, it was a very exciting time to see something move forward and get passed.
A lot of unity in that.
A lot of unity, and that's important. But you know, my biggest problem with the state selling liquor is, you know, I ask myself, can we as a state promote liquor, sell liquor? You know, I actually hear commercials on the radio and TV commercials promoting them. And then on the other hand, we are the regulator of the industry, we're the enforcer of the industry, and to me, there's a major disconnect there.
And we fund programs to deal with addictions as well.
That's
you know?
exactly
so here
right.
we are selling it and then trying to deal with the effects. So, yeah, that's similar to what I was hearing out in the public as well. The conflict of interest that you're pointing out, and that's a huge issue, and the sense that you know, the private sector in all the states around us, and we're one of only two, I guess, in the nation.
Absolutely.
That
you know, I have a friend who came from California and moved here. And you know, for us, we're used to it. You know, you have state stores, you have beer distributors, and but she had come here and she told me the story about them, you know, trying to get together to have dinner. And she said, you know, her husband was a beer drinker, and a lot of the ladies were wine drinkers. So she was trying to make dinner and went to the grocery store. Then she found out, oh, I have to go pick up a beer at a beer distributor. Oh, and by the way, you had to buy a case. You know, you couldn't just buy a 6-pack.
Right.
And then, you know, then she had to go to the liquor store to buy a bottle of wine. So she said, you know, if you're not from this area, you kind of say, what is this?
Right,
and
it's just amazing to people.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah. Well, on the control side too, you know, you think, what is the incentive though for, you know, the control side for those private owners, the distributors and so forth, and that is the penalty of the loss of their license, you know, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I mean, that's their whole livelihood. It's done.
Yes.
And,
so I think the opportunity for control is sufficient, and that's and it probably was surprising to some, shall we say, that the Lancaster County delegation as a whole voted in support of that legislation.
Well, again, I go back to smaller government. I mean, you know, anything that we can take out of government's hands and put into the private sector, I mean, that's where competition takes place, and it's not our business to be selling alcohol. And that's where even my most conservative folks in my district came to me and said, absolutely. I mean, if we want smaller government, we want smaller government.
Right. Let's get government out of the things that it doesn't need to be
That's
doing.
right.
So, very
and
good.
concentrate on the things we do.
Absolutely.
Like transportation.
There we go, which takes us into our next point of discussion. The governor has put forward a significant transportation package, $1.8 billion in size, and I'm beginning to hear things from my constituents. I'm sure you are too.
Absolutely.
Up in the two offices in your district, Manheim and Denver. What's the take? What are you hearing out there, and what are your thoughts on the transportation issue?
Well, people get transportation. How can I say that? Out of all the things that the state spends money on, everybody uses our road system. Businesses need to be able to get from point A to point B without a bridge being closed and have to go 10 miles around it. I mean, it all affects their bottom line. So a lot of my constituents are pushing, saying, you know what, it is your job in government to take care of our road systems.
Core function of government.
It's a core function of government,
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Our challenge, I guess, what do we have? They're telling us 4,000 deficient bridges at this point.
That's right, that's right.
And those in the trucking industry would tell us that so many of these bridges are closed or weight restricted that we're sending trucks way out around to deal with the limitations
That's
there.
exactly right.
That impacts our local businesses in Ephrata, out your way, Manheim, and really all across Lancaster County. I guess the challenge then is, how do you pay for it, right?
Well, and first of all, let me say, transportation does get a lot of money. So, again, I look at the money and I say, okay, how are we best utilizing those dollars?
And I was so impressed. You launched an effort to research that a little bit. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I first think we need to make sure every dollar we spend on transportation is being used where it should be. The second one is the private-public sector. That I guess, maybe you can help me a little bit with that. Was that passed last year?
Last session.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what a great opportunity. Anytime that we can add private dollars mixed with public money coming in for a good cause.
Right. Well, private-public partnership 3Ps was to build capacity by inviting folks who would maybe want to build a toll road alongside of or in conjunction with an existing roadway, and do so for a profit opportunity, quite frankly, but put some of our dollars in, but the lion's share being outside investment to get some of these road projects moving. One, for instance, on that was maybe a second deck on the Schuylkill Expressway, and the engineering behind that's just mind-boggling. But you could for a fee travel on the upper deck at 65 plus miles an hour, or you can be parked on the lower deck and for free with thousands of your closest friends.
Right.
And that's the choice is yours. But that's the type of thing with 3P. And yeah, so you're right, and that's a good thing to raise as well. The franchise fee, I guess, maybe you want to talk to us a little bit about what you see there with that funding idea.
Absolutely. I just want to add one more thing in is prevailing wage reform. If we could do something with prevailing wage, our dollars would be stretched so much further along. So
Absolutely.
That's another very important one.
Which is the union preference labor rate that we get hit with in Lancaster County and all across the state because of the, again, prevailing wage or prevailing union labor rate within certain zones or districts. So
that's right.
Great point.
As far as the cap, I guess it was in 1983 they put a cap on the tax or the fee that they could charge. I think it was at $1.25, and the governor is proposing lifting that cap to the rate of inflation over the next 5 years. And in doing so, he is estimating, I think it's $1.8 billion to be able to bring in to transportation.
Yes, last words we're hearing is that the Senate side may actually try to run an even more robust package out through, and so we'll see where we go. But what does this mean to the consumer? And that's a little higher fee at the pump. And as you know, it is a user fee to an extent. And it's the people that are filling up who are actually the ones using the road. So there's a logic there. But the other thing we hear is in tough economic times, anything that would raise the cost a bit is challenging politically. So,
absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see it unfold, and as a freshman legislator, it's quite eye-opening.
And of course, the budget process. We're in the middle of all of that.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
Yeah. Any impressions on that process at this
well,
point?
The budget. I think the book's about 3 inches.
The phone book.
The phone book we call that, and. The way I've been handling that as a freshman is I'm digging into particular agencies. Again, I had somebody from agriculture come over and talk to me and really dig into that budget, because that's one budget on the surface looked like it was being cut. I'm learning from the governor's proposal that it's actually not being cut, it's a transfer of funds coming in. And so, you know, it's a learning curve. I had transportation come over, that was another one near and dear to me, and well, that one we're still working on.
Very good, but you're wading through the details there.
That's right.
And yeah, it's, well, you have the business background, so that's going to help you so much in Harrisburg. But yeah, it's a complicated document, and obviously it's our roadmap for each year. So
It is.
it's kind of like that family or business budget where, you know, everybody disagrees about, well, some want more for vacation and some pay the bills and realize they can't afford it. You know what I mean? It's priorities, I guess.
Well, you know what? I think the fact that we have to have a balanced budget and we have to have it on time, though, is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, it keeps us in check, and that's why, you know, not always everybody gets everything they want, but, you know, I teach my kids that. We have needs and we have wants, and, you know, it works out the way it works out. We have to make sure our needs are taken care of first.
And an excellent point you raised, the balanced budget amendment was the wisdom of an earlier generation saying, you know, you have to live within your revenue stream. And they need to learn that in Washington, I think. So that's something Mindy, you and I can help to show them that down there. Beyond that, though, I guess June will be a busy month for us. And are you ready to go? I guess ready or not, here we go.
I am. I'll tell you, it's interesting because, you know, I said this job is almost twofold. You know, I have up here in Harrisburg and passing the budget and working on where the money's going. But, you know, one of the other very important parts is our district work.
Yes.
As I learned very quickly. I was fortunate enough to be able to keep two of the folks that worked in Representative Creighton's office, and, you know, they said, Mindy, make sure you hit your ground with your feet running. Well, I was able to do that because there's a lot of constituent work. There's a lot of people that, you know, look at this, you know, state government and need help working their way through it.
Absolutely. Cutting through the red tape, as they say.
Absolutely.
And getting to the answer they need.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah. And that's a very exciting part of the job.
Very good, very good. And you do maintain the two offices then. You have one, give us the addresses there.
I do. One's on the square, Manheim, 47 Market Square, and the other one's up in Denver. It's at the Borough Municipal Building. Both are staffed, and, you know, we've been doing a lot of different outreach programs. We have a Veterans Day where every first Wednesday of the month they come into the Denver office, and every second Wednesday of the month they come into the Manheim office. And they just help veterans, you know, weed their way through any different benefits that they may need help with, or so it's a great outreach program.
Okay, very good. Well, Mindy, thank you so much for joining me. That's all the time we have for today's program. I'm Representative Gordon Denlinger. If you have questions about any state government matter, please feel free to contact me at my local office or through my website. That information will be shown in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me next time for another edition of Legislative Report.